Hey guys, I'm going to give you a short deck profile of my Prophecy deck before the new format kicks in, because this deck has been super consistent for me, this format, and it deserves its deck profile before the new format. So, to start off, we have 3 Magician of Prophecy, main searcher of the deck. He's really good, gets those spell cards to your hand. 3 copies of Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer. He's an 1800 point beater, also 4 stars, and he has a really nasty effect that just wrecks your opponent's graveyard. He's just super freaking good. He's way too good to be a spellcaster. Next, we have 2 Max Cs. Because of E-Dragons, this deck, when you plus with it from Max C, it just gets ridiculous. And we only have 1 Jowgen. Just 1 Jowgen, because you only need 1. He is a super jerk. He doesn't let anybody special summon. He can nuke all special summon monsters. He's a jerk. He is a big fat jerk. That was all the monsters, so we're going to move on to the spell cards, and as you can well imagine, there are a lot of them. We have 3 copies of Spellbook of Secrets, because Secrets searches out another Spellbook card. It thins out the deck really well when used with Master, so yeah, use Spellbook of Secrets. Next we have 3 copies of Spellbook of Fate, because this is the main control card of the deck. Basically, when you get out Jowgen and have Fate face down, you basically just win the game. You just won the game from that. And the best thing about Spellbook of Fate is that Spellbook of Fate doesn't target. It doesn't target. None of its effects target. So if your opponent does make, so let's just say your opponent brings out Obelisk or something, and you use Spellbook of Fate to remove it from play, and your opponent's just like, no, you can't do that because Obelisk can't be targeted. But Spellbook of Fate doesn't target, so it gets around that. It is an official rule, so just remember that. Next we have 3 copies of Spellbook of Eternity, because you will be using Spellbook of Fate a lot in this deck, so you need to find a way to get your remove from play Spellbook cards back into your deck. Next we have 2 Spellbook of Judgment. A lot of people like to run 3 Judgments because they want to make sure, absolutely sure, that they draw into it in the first turn. But this deck has actually been running fine with just 2. I was actually doing fine with this deck with just 1 for a while, but I'm not running 3 mostly because I don't have a 3rd copy. I'll get my 3rd copy when this card gets banned. Next we have 2 copies of Library of the Crescent. This is basically just a good opening card to open with. I can't believe I just said that, but still, you take my point. We have Spellbook of the Master, just 2 copies of it. Copy Secrets, copy Eternity. You can even copy Library of the Crescent with Spellbook of the Master, because it only copies the effect and not the actual cost, or the restrictions, or the conditions to it. So, yeah. Master is just really good for thinning out the deck when used in unison with Secrets. 2 copies of Spellbook Starhall. This card racks up counters really fast in this deck. It just piles on counters, and, you know, eventually you get monsters on your side of the field that have like 2,500 attack points each, and that's just Magician of Prophecy. Oh hey, my Magician has 2,500 attack points. Next we have 2 copies of Spellbook Tower. Spellbook Tower just does so much work, it gets that extra draw. If your opponent gets rid of it, you could just summon another spellcaster in its place, so it's just way too fucking good. Next we have 2 Spellbook of Wisdoms. It protects one of your magicians from spells or traps. It's really good for also maintaining Jowgen control, like if your opponent tries to Dark Hole your Jowgen. Oh hey, Spellbook of Wisdom. So what were you going to do? You're not going to do it now, because I still have Jowgen on the field. Next, we have 2 copies of Spellbook of Life, which is basically the reborn of the deck. It also manipulates levels, so it makes Xyz summoning and Synchro summoning rather interesting. Next we have 2 copies of Spellbook of Power, just 2 copies of Power because I want just 40 cards in this deck. And, you know, 2 is honestly quite enough, but it's still really good. Boosts some Spellcaster by 1,000, get a Surge if it destroys a monster in battle. It's a really good card. Now that was it for the Spellbook cards. These are the 4 staples. I really like Book of Moon because Spellbook Magician activates its effect to search when it's normal summoned or flipped face up, and Book of Moon is really good and is really flexible in that regard. Next, for the 2 traps, we have 2 Threatening Roars. And that's it for the traps. Just 2 Threatening Roars. And that was the main deck. Let's move on to the Fusion deck, which I don't really go into all that often with this deck, but, you know, it's always good to have techs. If you're allowed to have 15 cards in your tech pile. Now then, there are a few cards missing from this Fusion deck, but I'll just show it off anyway. We have Gotchi Gotchi, and we have Shining Elf for level 2s. We have Acid Golem, which I never go into. You'd probably be best off replacing that with Daigusto Phoenix or Dark Mist. Probably would replace Zenmanes with that too, because they really don't get brought into all that often. Like, most of these monsters don't get brought into all that often at all. We have Alchemic Magician. It needs 4 level 4 monsters, or 3 level 4 monsters, sorry. But her effect is just so outrageous. Shining Elf, I didn't put in a word for Shining Elf earlier, but it is a really good card to go into because it's a level 2, it only needs 2 level 2s, and it already has 1,600 attack points, so add that on with the Star Halls and stuff, and hey. Next we have Utopia, kind of a staple there. Papal Operative, also kind of a staple. And next we have Empress of Prophecy, which, again, I don't go into that often because it is a rank 5, but still, might as well have a tech. And that's it for the Xyz monsters, save for Big Eye. I just don't have a Big Eye. I've actually been fine without it because I don't run Priestess in my main deck, but yeah, I'll get to that in a bit. For Synchros, we have Cataster, and I'll tell you why I have Synchros in this deck in a little bit. We have Tempest Magician, which does a lot of burn damage if you can manage to get her out, but, you know, I don't get her out very often at all. Stardust Dragon, because, you know, Synchros. Gotta have a Stardust Dragon. Black Rose, also for the same reason. And Crimson Blader, because it wrecks Mermails. It wrecks a lot of things, actually. Okay, now, last but not least, we have the side deck, which runs 2 copies of High Priestess. Probably going to switch to the Priestess build once this new format gets in and Spellbook of Judgment gets banned and stuff. So, she's just really good to side into in this format. But, yeah, that's pretty much all I can say. She's a good beater, easy to get out. Just stuff. 2 Starlight Roads, just because I like Starlight Road. Probably would be best to go with Mind Crushes for these, though. But, oh well. 2 Rivalry of the Warlords. This card wrecks Evil Swarm. It just destroys Evil Swarm. It is... I just love that card, just because it wrecks Evil Swarm so bad. Next, we have 3 Soul Drains, because Mermail, because Dark World, because, you know, Soul Drain is the card that everyone needs to have in their side deck. 2 Royal Decrees, because traps, you know, also good to side against Evil Swarms, even though Rivalry of the Warlords is a thing, but just in case you draw into one, just in case you draw into a Royal Decree or a Rivalry, you know, you have something to fight off against Evil Swarms. You don't necessarily need both of them, but at least one of them. Next we have 2 Effect Veilers to side in, switch out the Max C, maybe. You know, just because Rescue Rabbit is still a thing with Evil Swarms. And then we have 2 Dimensional Fissures, because D-Fissure doesn't hurt your spells, so it should be pretty okay to run. But yeah, that's pretty much the deck for you, and I hope you guys enjoyed watching the video.